Hello and welcome to the BYU Library Family History webinar. We're glad you could join us today. I'm Olivia Tueller and I'll be your host for this webinar. If you have technical difficulties during the webinar, please use the chat box and I can address your concerns. You are welcome to use the chat box during the webinar for comments, insights, and questions. However, all questions will be addressed at the end of the presentation. Our next webinar is on August 10th with Catherine Grant. She will be giving a presentation entitled, "How Did You Find That? Tips for Searching Family Search Historical Records." Note that we will not be having a webinar next week, Thursday, August 3rd. If you would like to access a previous webinar, please visit our webinar index on our website or search on our YouTube channel. All of our webinars are recorded and uploaded by the following Monday for your convenience. We also post links to recordings and other updates on our Facebook and Twitter accounts. For today's webinar, we are pleased to hear from Larry Jensen. He will be giving a presentation entitled Understanding German Historical Background. This is a pre-recorded lecture with no Q&A section. However, Larry Jensen's contact information will be provided at the end of the presentation if you have any questions that you would like to send to him. Before we begin, here is a little bit about Larry. He has a Bachelor of Science from Brigham Young University and is an author of a genealogical handbook of German research. He was the co-author of Maps of the German Empire of 1871 and co-editor of German Genealogical Digest. Larry is retired with 35 years work experience with the Salt Lake Family History Library. And we will now turn the time over to Larry.
Welcome to Lecture 4 in a series of 10 lectures on German genealogical research. The lecture today is on understanding German historical background as it affects genealogical research. In this lecture, I'll be talking about the following time periods, subjects, and events that are arranged historically from the earliest to the latest. The beginning slide number for each is given on the right. As you can see from the table of contents, we have a great deal to talk about it. Libraries are one of the best resources. Local public libraries are often the closest repositories of these histories. A college or university library would be even better. The Salt Lake Family Search Library has a large collection of German histories, many of which are digitally available. Some histories are based on time periods like the 17th and 18th century, and others are based on events like medieval, Reformation, or the 30 Years' War. Other resources that are good include encyclopedias, periodicals, and the internet. Different types of German locality histories include country, nobility area, city, cultural area, and topographical area. For example, those found in the Salt Lake Family Search Library catalog include, for the country of Germany, there are 269 histories. For the nobility area of Bayern or Bavaria, there are 27 histories. For the city of Leipzig, there are 6 histories. For the cultural area, the Folkland, there are 4 histories. And for the topographical area of the Westerwald or Western Forest, there is 1 history. Be sure to check for histories for all of your locality areas. The following are some of the types of information that you should be looking for as you study the history of your area. Changes in nobility and governmental jurisdictions, laws and decrees affecting records, historical events, wars, famines, plagues, foreign occupations, etc., and cultural changes, including language, naming practices, occupations, calendars, and feast dates. Almost every town has a published history. In searching histories, look for those things that will impact the research process and record use. It's not always necessary to read the complete history book. A book's table of contents can provide a quick way to find important information. For example, in this first volume of the history of the city of Leipzig from 1015 to 1600, Chapter 31 pertains to the Bauernkrieg or Peasant War in 1525, followed by several chapters on the Reformation. As was mentioned, sources of historical information also include historical atlases, encyclopedias, and periodicals on the internet. This World Atlas, although written in German, is easy to use, with each map being identified by the date or time period, as well as the locality or the area the map pertained to. The Weitmeyer's Konversationslexikon is a 16-volume encyclopedia published in the 1880s. It provides historical, cultural, and topographical information on localities, people, and subjects. With the technology today, it is easy to translate documents even those in the old German Fraktur, so that resources like this encyclopedia can be easy to use. Periodicals often provide historical background of places or areas of research, as well as family histories, compiled genealogies, and pedigrees. The following instructions will take you to the BYU Family History website, where there are 4 webinar lectures on using German periodicals and periodical indexes. Included in the lectures are instructions on how to access an online database that lists over 600 German periodicals. Step 1 is to click on the following website. Step 2, under webinar categories, click on Foreign Countries webinars. Step 3, under Foreign Countries webinars, scroll down to the titles Using German Periodicals and Periodicals Indexes, parts 1 through 4. Most, if not all, of the following types of libraries have online catalog. And like the Family Search Library in Salt Lake City, some libraries have digitized histories. This map shows Europe at the time of the Roman Empire. On this enlargement, Germany at that time was known as Germania Magna. It extended east to the Vistula River and to the west to the Rhine River, with the Danube River on the south. Beginning in the 4th century AD, the Slavic tribes began migrating in different directions. Their westward migration caused the Germanic tribes to move into the area of the Roman Empire. When Charlemagne became emperor in 800 AD, he stopped the advancement of the Slavic tribes and established a cultural boundary shown here with a red line. This red vertical line shows the boundaries that separated the Germanic and the Slavic cultures. The importance of this will be explained in the 5th lecture on understanding the German cultural background. The following information is provided on one of the handouts for this lecture. It shows the nobility in the provincial areas of the German Empire and identifies the Germanic and Slavic tribes that were found in each. These tribes had a lasting effect on names of localities, given and surnames, records, and languages. It is interesting to see how a single Slavic tribe called the Prussians or Prussians eventually became a kingdom and whose king became then emperor. The Prussian tribe was identified in the year 965 AD and became a part of the Teutonic Order in 1309. By knowing the nobility and government changes that occurred, it makes it possible to find records of your ancestors that you wouldn't find otherwise. The following shows how Prussia, shown as the shaded areas on the maps on the left, evolved in size and jurisdiction. In 1320, Prussian area became known as the March of Brandenburg, and in 1594 it became a duchy. In 1688, Brandenburg Prussia area included East Prussia, most of Pomerania, and other areas. Prussia became a kingdom in 1701. By 1806, Prussia acquired the areas of West Prussia, Posen, and Schlesien. Between 1815 and 1866, Prussia added the areas of Saxon, Rhineland, Hesse-Nassau, Hanover, and Schleswig-Holstein. In 1871, the King of Prussia was crowned Emperor of the German Empire. Even though this is called the German Empire, much of the eastern area's culture is Slavic. One of the nobility areas in the Slavic area was the Kingdom of Saxony. A research problem became evident to me when a patron came to the Salt Lake Family Search Library wanting to find information on her ancestral town of Budesen in Saxony. In searching the Myers Gazetteer, no town was listed by that name. The patron insisted that it was a very large city in eastern Saxony. The Saxony Gazetteer, Historisches Ortsverzeichnis von Sachsen, was searched online. In the search field, I entered Budesen. The entry came up showing that the city of Bautzen was also known as Budesen, which is the Sorbic or Slavic language name for it. When the patron looked up Bautzen in the library catalog, she found records and resources that spanned from the 1400s to 1900s. In looking on the general map of the Kingdom of Saxon, as it existed in 1871, the city of Bautzen is shown outlined in red. This enlargement of the area shows the city of Bautzen is followed by the Slavic name of Budesen. This shows how older copies of maps can be very helpful in providing important information. The establishment of Christianity. This is another one of the handouts for this lecture. It shows when Christianity was established in each nobility and provincial area. Up until the 1400s, the main Christian churches were the Roman Catholic and the Eastern Orthodox, which included almost every European country shown on this outline map. The establishment of Christianity was not the beginning of church records. During this early time period, very few church records were kept. This changed with the Reformation. The Reformation occurred in the 1400s and 1500s with Martin Luther in Germany, Ulrich Zwingli in Switzerland, Menno Simons in the Netherlands, and it also included the Walloons, Huguenots, and Salzburgers. The following effects resulted from the Reformation. It caused more detailed church records to be kept. Surnames were established. It brought about the movement of people from country to country and area to area. It affected language, cultural, and record keeping. More people could now read the Bible in their own language. The Bauernkrieg, or Peasant War, from 1524 to 1525, this was an early attempt in Germany to gain freedom from nobility rule. The peasants wrote the following 12 articles as their declaration of independence. 5 of these articles are stated the following. They wanted to be able to elect their own minister and to dismiss him for bad behavior. Christ redeemed the shepherd and nobleman. We are all equal. We declare we are free. God gave men dominion over the feast, fowls, and fish. Poor men should be free to hunt and fish. Nobles who took the forest from a village should return it so all men can obtain wood for fire. So that widows and orphans will not be robbed, the inheritance tax, which is contrary to God and honor, shall be abolished altogether. The Peasant War first broke out in the summer of 1524. It eventually included the areas of Baden, Württemberg, Bavaria, Thüringen, and Salzburg, Austria. Martin Luther did not support the peasant uprising. He felt that the responsibility of the peasants was farm work, and the responsibility of the nobility was to maintain peace. The war came to an end in September 1525 with the defeat of the peasant army. About 100,000 of the 300,000 peasants were killed. The army of the nobility reportedly lost less than 100 soldiers. Unfortunately, no records could be found for this time period that identified the names of those parents who were killed or who participated in the war. Genealogical periodicals published in these nobility areas where this conflict occurred may contain articles that include more information from local sources about those who were involved in it. Between 1500 and 1600, Lutheranism had become the dominant religion in Scandinavia and the areas of Germany outlined in red on the following map. This resulted in disunity and conflicts between the two religions. The Peace of Augsburg on the 25th of September in 1555 The Augsburger religious peace ended the religious war of the Reformation period and resulted in the recognition of two religions, namely the Catholic and the Lutheran. The feudal princes chose the religion for their respective areas. Their serfs had to accept whichever religion was chosen. Other Protestant churches were still persecuted. This map shows the areas where other Protestant groups were found, including the Mennonites, Huguenots, Walloons, and Salzburgers. Settlements of the Mennonites were found in West Prussia, provincial area, along the Weissel River. Huguenots were found throughout western and central Germany. A large settlement was found in Hessen, Nassau, and Bavarian areas. The settlements of the Walloons were found in the Alsace-Lotharing and the Bavarian Pfalz. Settlements of the Salzburgers were found in eastern kingdom of Saxon and the provinces Schlesien and Ostpreußen. Germany witches and witch trials. Just like in America and other areas of Europe, there were dark times in the history of Germany when witch trials were held. Germany they occurred from the 13th through the 18th centuries. It is estimated that between 1500 and 1600, or 1660, about 80,000 witches and sorcerers were put to death. 80% of them were women. Germany had the highest execution rate of all of the European countries. In this gazetteer of the Duchy of Mecklenburg's parishes, it lists different types of records and the years they cover. In the parish of Prussia, one of those records was Hexenverbrennungen, or witch burnings, that occurred in 1684, 85, and 1706. The town of Penzlin in Mecklenburg, a record was found that identified those who were accused of being witches or sorcerers. For some of them, a symbol of water is given at the end of the entry. This indicated that the water test had been used to determine if they were a witch or sorcerer. Someone who extracted the record and published it in a periodical put a smiley face or a frowny face after some who survived or died. These were all women except the last person on the list. What was the water test? One form of it was where the person accused of being a witch was bound with rope. Right hand was tied to left foot and left hand to the right foot. A rope was tied around the waist of the accused so that they could be pulled from the water. The person was then thrown into the water. If the body floated and didn't sink, it proved that they were a witch. If the body sank to the bottom, it proved that they were innocent. Unfortunately, for some of those who were innocent, they drowned by the time they pulled them out. The following was taken from the parish death records in Prussia, Mecklenburg. The entry states that on 25 September 1685 is Anna Barca from Schwechow, because of witchcraft, was burned with fire. Could your ancestor be a close relative of one of those who was accused of being a witch or sorcerer? Often we fail to realize that there is a strong possibility that one of our ancestors may have been either a close relative to or a direct descendant of a witch. It has been estimated that over 750,000 women died as a result of these trials. In which court were the witch trials held? They were recorded in the lower court called the Amtsgericht, abbreviated as AG. In the webinar number 3 on German records and jurisdictions, I talked about the Amtsgericht. The death record said that Anna Barca was from Schwechow. The following is the Myers Gazetteer entry for Schwechow. Schwechow belonged to the parish of Prussia. The EVPFK is the abbreviation for the Lutheran Church. Where were the court records kept for Schwechow? This shows that the lower court records for both Schwechow and Prussia were at the city of Lubtin. What was happening during the time in the areas where the witch trials occurred? It happened between 1500 and 18 and was known as Germany's Little Ice Age. It resulted in periods of famine and hunger due to widespread crop failure, including before and after the 30 Years' War, which was in 1618 to 1648. What caused people to be accused of being witches and sorcerers? The people were so desperate that they would use whatever they could for food. One town passed out instructions on how to use the pulp from a tree branch to make bread. According to some findings, there is a connection between the use of certain herbs and potions that were taken to suppress hunger during the times of famine. Some of these had side effects that caused hallucinations. Because they could see and hear things that others couldn't, they were accused of being witches and sorcerers. So could your ancestor be a close relative of one who is accused of being a witch or sorcerer? Yes, they could. Feudalism. Feudalistic systems may vary from area to area. Typically, estates belonging to upper nobility, such as duke or king, the serfs owed their allegiance and paid tribute or taxes to them. Serfs who were the property of the nobility had no rights. They had use of the land according to the will of the nobility. Estates were awarded to lower nobility, such as lords and knights. Serfs owed their allegiance and paid tribute to the manor lord. Serfs who had use of the land did so by entering into a sworn allegiance to the nobility. This example is of the division of estates pertaining to farmers, freemen, and serfs was found in the 1785 district of Brandenburg, Prussia. Out of 1,435 farmers, 127 owned their own farms, 420 were freemen who leased their land, 888 serfs living on estates that were under upper or nobility. Out of the 888 serfs, 291 were passed on through inheritance. 98 possessions ended when the serf died. 359 possessed the land as long as they were good tenants and were able to perform the work and pay their taxes. 71 possessed it for an undetermined period. 5 possessed the land for a period of 3 years. 5 possessed the land for a period of 6 years. And 12 possessed the land according to the will of the nobility. Records pertaining to serfs were called Untertanen or Leibeigenschaften. The mid-1500s brought the threat of a Turkish or Ottoman's invasion. This woodcut illustrates the concept that the Europeans had of the Turks. It shows a father and mother who are bound, being led with ropes around their necks by the Turk, impaled on his spear as their child. Between 1520 and 1566, the Turks had advanced to the borders of Austria and were threatening to conquer all of Europe. In preparing to defend against the Turkish invasion, taxes were levied on the German people. This is a Prussian-Germany-Turkish tax for 1540. This tax occurred at the time when Prussia was ruled by a duke. This page from the tax record lists individuals by their given name and the amount of tax they paid. Julian and Gregorian calendars. The Julian calendar was established in 45 BC under the rule of Julius Caesar. Pope Gregory XIII changed the calendar in 1582 so that the 4th of October was followed by the 15th of October. The following chart shows dates and places the Gregorian calendar was established. Catholic churches began using the Gregorian calendar between 1582 and 1584. The Protestant churches did not begin to use the Gregorian calendar until much later. For example, in the city of Hildesheim, where the population was 50% Catholic and 50% Lutheran, they began using the Gregorian calendar in March of 1631. By 1700, both Catholics and Protestants were using this calendar. This chart shows that in the city of Strasbourg, Alsace-Lotharingen, on 5 February 1682, was followed by the 16th of February of that year. What did this calendar change look like in the church records when it changed to the Gregorian calendar? This is a christening record in the parish of the St. Thomas in Strasbourg, Alsace-Lotharingen, Germany. In year 1682, this entry is on the 3rd of February, and the next entry is February 22nd. In the left margin before February 22nd, there is a note. The margin note says, nach dem neuen Kalender hinführen. It refers to the next date being entered according to the new Gregorian calendar. In this entry, the child would have been born on the 12th of February, but with the Gregorian calendar, it became the 22nd of February in 1682. 30 Years' War. Germans were divided not only by territory, but also by religion. This war was from 1618 to 1648. It was a war partially religious in nature that reduced German particularism. Germany's particularism meant that within it there were many states of various sizes and kinds, including principalities, electorates, ecclesiastical territories, free cities, and others. Results of the 30 Years' War caused the loss of about 1/3 of the German population with their property and records. I came across a town in the Pfalz, Bavaria, that went from a population of 800 down to 31. It caused the temporary and permanent movement of people within local areas to international countries. It affected political and ecclesiastical boundaries and their control over people. It changed or strengthened local cultures, either briefly or on a permanent basis. The following chart shows the percentage of destruction of the nobility in provincial areas. This information is included in one of the handouts for this lecture. The following historical account of the destruction of the city of Magdeburg provides a glimpse of the destructive nature of this war. A historian recorded that men, women, children, the aged and the young were all massacred alike. The very infants at the breasts of their mothers being seized, stabbed, and hurled into the flaming mass beside them. A scene of horror which continued from 10 o'clock in the morning and during the whole day until night. Every possible cruelty and torments of every description were put into practice. By 10 o'clock in the evening, nothing more was left of this ancient and magnificent city but the cathedral, one solitary convent, and a few stray fishermen's cabins on the Elbe. All else was reduced to cinders and ashes. More than 20,000 human beings perished. The following, one of the handouts for this lecture, shows the primary religion for each nobility and provincial area before the war and then after the war. As you can see, there's very little change, showing the futility of this war. Following the war, the Peace of Westphalia in 1648 determined what the state religions for the different areas of Germany would be. Baden-Württemberg and the Lower Pfalz or Palatinate were based on what the religion was in 1618 when the war began. All other areas of Germany were based on what the religion was in 1624. 30 Years' War and record restoration of land ownership. This war caused the destruction of lives and property, including churches and other records. Even though the war ended in 1648, many were not aware of it. In the case of one family from the Pfalz, they waited another 10 years before they returned. When they returned, they found the landscapes had changed so much they could not tell where their farm had been. The government assigned renovators who created renovation protocol of records to reestablish property rights. If a person had documented proof of ownership, they could reclaim their land. This is the renovation record for Hohenecken, Pfalz, Bavaria. Records covered from 1670 to 1792 and are difficult to use. They are chronological, handwritten, and not indexed. Because whole families were wiped out in this war, there was land available for others. During this time period, there were many Swiss families who migrated into this area. Germany's education system. As far as the nobility were concerned, the function of universities was to serve the needs of principalities by providing education and training of civil servants to enhance the reputation of the princes. Monarchs considered reforms in order to create more efficient societies, but not at the expense of their own power. Primary education. This began in the 1700s. It introduced free but compulsory education. The Volksschule, or people's school, was an 8-year course, including reading, writing, arithmetic, a strict education in ethics, duty, discipline, and obedience. Secondary education. 4 additional years of education available to the affluent families only. At the time of the 1871 German Empire, the following were the 4 types of secondary schools: a 9-year classical gymnasium, including the study of Latin and classical Greek or Hebrew, plus 1 modern language; a 9-year Real Gymnasium focusing on Latin, modern languages, science, and mathematics; a 6-year Real Schule without the university entrance qualifications, but with the option of becoming a trainee in one of the modern industrial office or technical jobs; and then finally a 9-year Oberrealschule focusing on modern languages, science, and mathematics. This next example is from the town of Schmalzgrube in the Kingdom of Saxon. It is the Volksschule, or the People's School, which was an 8-year course. This school would be the one that most of our ancestors attended. This introduction statement says that it is a school registration for the registration and release of students for this school from 1840 to 1851. The first column gives the entry number 17. The second column gives the name of the child as Christiana Frederica Weinhold. The third column gives the name, residence, and occupation of the father, but here it is a stepfather, Karl Weinhold, who is a cottager and worker at the wire drawer mill from Schmalzgrube. The fourth column is the child's date and place of birth, which was on 1 March 1824 in Schmalzgrube. The fifth column is the date of school registration. This column is empty, but it would have been when the child was about 5 years old. The last column is the release date from school. This was shown as being on St. Michael's Day, which was on the 29th of September. This was in 1837, when this child would have been age 13 based on her birth date. This shows how valuable school records can be. Next, I want to talk about German eastward and westward expansion, immigration, and colonization. The 1700s saw the population begin to move from the heavily populated areas in the west to the areas of Brandenburg, Schlesien, Posen, Pommern, Westpreußen, and Ostpreußen that were in eastern part of the Kingdom of Prussia. Expansion into Eastern Europe. Catherine the Great of Russia, a German princess born in Stettin, Pommern, Germany, invited Germans to colonize Russia with free land, no taxes, no military duty, no Russian government control. In 1763, Catherine the Great invited the Germans to settle in the fertile Volga River Valley area of Russia. In the late 1790s, the Black Sea area was opened up for German settlements with the same conditions. German immigration and colonization, westward expansion to the New World, which included North, South, and Central America. The following is a 2011 worldwide statistic of how many people there are in the world who are of German descent. During the 30 Years' War, the Pfalz Palatinate area lost between 1 to 2/3 of its population, as well as the destruction of property. The Protestants in this area continued to be persecuted. In 1683, a minister named Francis Daniel Pastorius brought a group of pietist families to America on the ship Concord. They came into the port of Philadelphia and settled in a place just north of it that they called Germantown, Pennsylvania. This was the first permanent German settlement in America. Their trip from the Pfalz to Philadelphia and the trip of those that came after them in the 1700s was not easy. The journey was in 3 parts. Part 1, a journey down the Rhine River from southwest Germany to Rotterdam, Netherlands, took between 5 to 6 weeks, because there were 26 custom houses along the river that inspected every boat and charged a toll payment. After arriving in Rotterdam, they were detained there for another 5 to 6 weeks. Part 2, the journey from Rotterdam to Coves, England, meant another delay of 2 to 3 weeks, waiting for ships to pass through customs or waiting for favorable winds. Part 3, leaving England for America. If there were favorable winds, it could take up to about 8 weeks. Usually, it took up to 12 weeks. The passengers were packed densely together without proper food or water. On one ship, there were over 400 adults and children. They became subject to dysentery, scurvy, typhoid, and smallpox. Children were especially vulnerable. One ship's log recorded 32 children died. When they reached the Delaware River and the city of Philadelphia, there was often another delay. A health officer came aboard, and if there was anyone with any infectious disease, the ship was ordered to remove 1 mile offshore from the city. Every passenger was examined before being released. In total, it took 6 months from the time they left their home in Germany until they arrived in Philadelphia. The Pennsylvania German Pioneers is a 3-volume work by Strasburg and Hinke. It is a list of immigrants from 1727 to 1808, most of whom traveled the Rhine River, Netherlands, England, America route. A digital copy of this 3-volume work is available by searching the Family Search Library catalog and doing a title search for Pennsylvania German Pioneers. Next, scroll down until you come to Pennsylvania German Pioneers. There are several entries, and you may have to click on each one until you come to the one you can click on the digital copies. By clicking on Volume 3 and going to Film Image 297, it will take you to the beginning of the name index. In this example, I'm going to look up Hans Jörg Anspacher or Anspach. It indicates that he is found in Volume 1, pages 8 and 9. Going to Volume 1, this title page shows that it covers the immigration period from 1727 to 1775. On page 8, Hans-Jörg Anspach is listed, and it shows that there are 2 1/2 people in his family. The 1/2 would be a child about 6 months old. You can also see that a note is made if an immigrant was sick or if they died en route. At the bottom of this page, it states that there were 109 families from the Palatinate out of a total of 400 people. Note 2, it shows none of the passengers were convicts. There were known instances where cities, to rid themselves of criminals, would pay for their passage and ship them to America. That was sometimes true with the people on welfare. The Palatinate area that these people were from is found in the southwest part of Germany, as shown here circled in red. German Hessian mercenary soldiers in the American Revolutionary War from 1776 to 1781. Part of the westward expansion occurred as a result of the American Revolutionary War, when England hired German mercenaries to fight against the American colonists. Of the 29,000 German mercenaries, 17,000 were Hessian soldiers from the Landgravate of Hessen-Kassel. 12,000 soldiers were from the other countries and other areas of Germany. Hessian soldiers' war statistics. Number that died during the war, 7,500. Of those that died, 15% died in battle, 85% died of illness, hunger, and exposure. The number that survived the war was 9,500. The percent deserted, captured, or discharged in America was 65%. The percent that returned to Germany was 35%. Registers of the Hetrina, or the Hessian troops in the American Revolutionary War. There are 6 volumes to this register. This table of contents identifies which military regiments are listed in each volume. Column headings are not listed at the top of each page, but are given at the beginning of each volume. In this register example, it shows that Philip Zartorius was born in 1736 or 1737 at Neustetten. At this time period, Neustetten belonged to the area of Hessen-Kassel. In checking the christening records, the following record was found for Johann Philipp Zartorius. The record gives his parents' names as Johann Melchior Zartorius, a cloth maker, and his wife Maria Barbara. The United States began keeping immigration records in 1820. The following shows immigration statistics to the United States from 1820 to 1974. Of the 4,334,000, 1,111,000 were actually Germans, and that for Russia, of the 3,334,000, 116,000 were Germans from Russia. The total number of German immigrants to America was more than 8,225,000. Concerning the 1900 U.S. Census, the following map shows that those states that are shaded had more people of German descent than any other nationality. At that time, people of German descent represented 25% of the total population. In the U.S. 2000 Census, people were asked to identify up to 5 countries that their ancestors were from. Each country was color-coded. The color for Germany was light blue. The color of each county and state was determined by the highest country of descendants. On the upper right, it shows the largest descendants by state. The following shows the results of a study that was completed in 2015 at the Family Search Library that determined that the largest ancestral group in the U.S. was German. In 2013, the following shows the results of another study done at the library that identified the following 13 areas of Germany that 90% of the world's German population traced their ancestors back to. In 1789, we had the French Revolution. The French gained their independence from nobility rule on the 22nd of September, 1792. The following are the results of the French Revolution. It instilled a feeling of national unity. It brought about the end of nobility rule and feudalism. It established civil registration and the recording of vital records. It established the use of the French Republican calendar, in which they changed the names of the months and began the reckoning of time all over again, beginning on the September 22nd, 1792, which became one Vendemiaire in the first year of the Republic. Each month had 30 days, and each week had 10 days, and there were 5 to 6 complementary days at the end of each year. French occupation of Germany from 1796 to 1812. What was established in France after 1792 was established in some areas of Germany that France occupied, including civil registration and the French Republican calendar. Civil registration for all of France began in 1792. This was not the case in Germany. Civil registry in Germany varied because of the various kingdoms, duchies, principalities, and provincial areas. The following map shows when each area of Germany began keeping civil registration. It began in the 1790s with the occupation of France up until 1876. By then, all of the areas were keeping it. By the 1790s, there were over 1,700 various kinds of German states. The Congress of Vienna, Austria, was held in 1815. The Congress of Vienna stipulated that these hundreds of states that existed in Germany before the French Revolution would be reduced to 38 states. 20 of these are shown on this map with their full name, and 18 are shown on the map with their names abbreviated. These 18 are listed with their full names on the insert in the lower right corner of the map. There are multiple times in the history of Germany when nobility and provincial areas changed. The webinar number 6, I will explain how the use of maps and atlases will help you identify those area changes that pertain to your ancestral research. Germany's Industrial Revolution. Germany's Industrial Revolution began in 1830s. The first railway system and train shown in this picture were built in Bavaria in 1835 and ran from Nuremberg to Fürth, a distance of less than 4 miles. The railway became one of the fastest growing industries in Germany. On this map, the red lines show the railway system by 1848, and the green lines show it by 1867. This is the railway system by 1900. Results of the Industrial Revolution in Germany. It caused a decline in rural populations. In 1880, 90% of the German Empire railway system was completed. It caused widespread movement to industrial areas. Areas doubled and tripled in size. This outline map shows the population increase in the German industrial cities. Dusseldorf, Rhineland, Prussia went from 100,000 to 275,000. Beuthen, Schlesien, Prussia went from 28,171 to 305,378. Danzig, West Prussia, went from 100,000 to 275,000. And Berlin, Brandenburg, Prussia went from 200,862 to 1,122,330. Industrial population statistics. 34% of those working in industrial areas were married. 60% of them were single. 6% of them were widowed. Distinction in industrial areas pertaining to female and male populations. The following are areas where men went to find work, and the following are areas where women went to find work. This is a German immigration graph. It covers a time period from 1835 to 1900. Immigration from Germany to the U.S. fluctuated for various reasons. This graph shows why it increased and decreased. So factors increasing the German immigration. In 1848, the German Revolution failed. In 1849 to 1852, the American Gold Rush. From 1852 to 53, German agricultural depression. From 1870 to 71, German Franco-Prussian War. From 1873, we have the German financial panic. 1877 to 78, the German anti-socialist law. 1880 to 82, American economic boom. 1883 to 89, Bismarck's social legislation. And 1891, revision of the industry code. Factor in decreasing German immigration. There's only one factor that decreased German immigration to America, and that was the American Civil War that lasted from 1861 to 65. If immigrant ancestors were listed on the Hamburg passenger list, it gave their bisheriger Wohnort, their last place of residence, which may or may not be their place of birth. So one of the problems associated with the population movement from the rural to the urban areas is that if the ancestor does immigrate from his last place of residence and it's not their place of birth, you will need to use a record from their last residence in order to trace them back to their place of birth. Using the following records from their last place of residence may help in determining actual place of birth. Anmeldung registers. When they first arrived at their new place of residence, they reported to the police where they had moved in from. Citizenship records in the new town may identify where they were from. Church Zählen registers or membership records often gave a place of birth. If applicable, church marriage, death records should also be checked. And some census records will also give the place of birth or place of origin. German Revolution of 1848. This is the modern day German flag, black, red, and gold, that was created at the time of the German Revolution in 1848. What it represented was coming out of the black darkness of feudalism through the red blood of the German Revolution into the golden day of freedom. So the German Revolution, unlike the Peasant War in 1525, who were primarily farmers, this involved the educated, the skilled, the middle and upper middle classes. It was this class of people who were taxed the heaviest. The revolt was against the feudalistic system and the rule by nobility or royalty classes. The failed revolution caused many to immigrate to America, often without obtaining permission. Those who survived the revolution faced death or imprisonment for treason. If they left without permission, they will not be listed on the regular immigration records, but other records and resources may exist. For example, in the district of Minden in Westphalen, Prussia, there is a 2-volume work identifying those who immigrated from that district from 1814 to 1900. Volume 1 identifies those who had permission to immigrate. The following is a title page for Volume 2 that identifies those who left without permission. Both volumes are the same size, meaning there were about as many leaving without permission as those who had permission. In Volume 2, the index in the back of the book is an alphabetical list of those who left without permission. Abraham Jacobi was one of those. The index gave his name, the number assigned to him, and the page he was listed on in the book. Turning to the page, it shows that Abraham Jacobi was born in Hartum, Westphalen, on 5 May 1830. His father is Laser Jacobi, and his mother is Julia Abel. At this time, Abraham was a medical student. He joined the revolution, was arrested and imprisoned. When released from prison, he fled the country without permission. In America, he went on to become the father of American pediatrics. For the most part, the high number of German immigrants meant Germany's loss became America's gain. Many of these immigrants were educated and skilled, and they and their descendants have had a major impact in many ways on our culture. The following is part of a handout for this lecture, listing German immigrants or descendants of German immigrants and the contributions they've made to our country and society. With 2 world wars, it wasn't always popular to be German. The next handout is a list of noted individuals from Germany or of German descent that shows that some changed their names for professional reasons. The list gives their birth name and then the professional name that they changed it to. Translation and phonetical name changes. Names were not usually changed for professional reasons. Some changed their German name by translating it into English, so that Schaefer became shepherd and Zimmermann became carpenter. Others changed their name phonetically. My second great-grandfather's German name was Jörg, and he changed it to Jonk. These and other name changes will be discussed in webinars lectures 5 and 9. Understanding changes in nobility areas. This is the Historisches Lexikon des Deutschen Länder. I talked about this reference resource in lecture number 2 on understanding German reference and research tools. Here I want to show you why understanding historical changes in nobility in provincial areas is important. This book identifies every nobility area and shows how and when it evolved. With Nassau, it shows that it began as a Grafschaft or a county ruled by a Graf or count between 1159 and 1160. It then became a Herzogtum or a duchy ruled by a duke in 1816. And in 1866, it was joined with Hessen Kassel and became the Prussian province of Hessen-Nassau. A search in the Family Search Library catalog of the locality Nassau as a Grafschaft shows 5 subjects listed for this time period. A search of this library catalog for the locality Nassau Herzogtum or Duchy shows 11 subjects listed for this nobility time period. And a search in this library catalog of the locality Hessen-Nassau when it was a Prussian province shows 50 subjects listed for this nobility time period. The German Empire from 1871 to 1919. More information is available for towns, governments, nobility, and provincial areas pertaining to the 1871 German Empire than ever before. The German Empire of 1871 was made up of the following nobility areas: 4 kingdoms or Königreiche, 6 grand duchies or Großherzogtümer, 5 duchies or Herzogtümer, 7 principalities or Fürstentümer, and 3 free cities, Freienstädten. In 1871, the Kingdom of Prussia included the following 13 provinces. If you know the nobility or provincial area your ancestor was from, you can access a great deal of important information and resources that can assist you with your family research. After logging on to Family Search, click on the Search tab. Scroll down and click on Research Wiki. On the world map, click on Europe. In the drop-down box, click on German Empire. In the next drop-down box, click on your nobility or provincial area. In this example, I've clicked on Baden. On this page, it gives a brief historical background for the Duchy of Baden. It also provides helpful instructions for getting started with German research and the use of German research tools. On this page, it has 3 tabs. The first takes you to Baden Online Genealogy Records. The second takes you to Germany Online Genealogy Records. And the third takes you to Ask the Community. Below the tabs, it shows the historical geography. To the right of this, it gives resources that you can click on for Baden major record types, reading the records, additional Baden record types, Baden background, local research resources, Germany record types, and Germany background. On this page, it provides instructions on how to find the name of your ancestor's town in family history records. Use gazetteers and or parish record inventories or to learn more important details. For birth, marriage, and death records beginning on 1 January 1876, use civil registration. For baptism, marriage, and death records, use church records or parish registers. Germany after World War I from 1919 to the present. In 1919, after World War I, the Weimar Republic was established. The 22 nobility areas abolished their monarchies and became free states, which continued as republics along with the free cities. After World War II, there were 2 Germanys. In the West, there was the Federal Republic of Germany, abbreviated as BRD, and in the East, there was the German Democratic Republic, abbreviated as DDR. In 1980, 2 special events took place. One was the World Conference on Records in Salt Lake City, Utah. The other took place in the DDR, which at the time was under Soviet rule. The second event occurred as a result of the World Conference on Records, where a state archivist and a government official from the DDR attended the conference and negotiated the microfilming of the DDR records. The microfilming continued until the unification of the DDR with the German Federal Republic in 1990. During the 10 years of microfilming, they completed the microfilming of the district archives of Eisenach, Apelda, and Weimar, formerly a part of the Duchy of Saxon-Weimar-Eisenach. Also completed was Arnstadt, formerly a part of the Principality of Schwarzburg-Sondershausen, and Erfurt, formerly a part of the Prussian province of Saxon. They microfilmed every record in those archives. The following is a list of the type of records that they filmed, giving the German name for each record type and the English translation of them. Under each of the record types, there are many different types of records. This chart also shows the time periods the record types cover. As you can see, these types of records are found in the district archives. In searching for these type of records for your ancestor, you need only to determine which district your ancestor belonged to. This was covered in lecture number 3 on understanding German records and jurisdictions. In 1990, the German Federal Republic acquired the area of the German Democratic Republic, and they became one country. Since the microfilming contract was with the German Democratic Republic, when it ceased to exist, the contract was no longer valid, and the microfilming stopped. Microfilming negotiations in this area have continued with individual archives. This concludes lecture number 4 in this 10-part lecture series.
All right, thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you will join us for our next webinar, which is on August 10th with Catherine Grant. Note that we will be having a webinar next Thursday, August 3rd. So Catherine Grant's presentation on August 10th will be a presentation entitled, How Did You Find That? Tips for Searching Family Search Historical Records. A recording of this webinar will be made available next week. You can view that on our YouTube channel or on our website. If you have any comments or questions, you can always email us at fhl_webinars@byu.edu or follow Facebook and Twitter. And then I also saw in the Q&A, someone asked, are the other webinars you referenced available on the BYU YouTube website? Yes. You should just be able to search Larry Jensen either on our website or on our YouTube channel and find those, but they'll also be linked when we post it on YouTube, so you can find them easily. But yeah, thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you have a wonderful week. Bye.